Hey guys, how are you? So I have a few questions for you, and you try to keep track, okay? So first question: what's the country outside of Europe where people speak German the most? Second question: what's the country outside of Japan with the biggest Japanese population? What's the country outside of Africa with the biggest Black population? What's the country outside of Lebanon with the biggest Lebanese population? And last but not least, what's the biggest country outside of Europe, outside of Italy, with the biggest Italian population? Can you figure that out? Probably not too hard because it's in the title. But yeah, even though Italian, German, African, Lebanese, Japanese are very, very different populations, all of them have some of their biggest communities or their biggest communities in the same country, in Brazil, which shows that it's very, very diverse. Now, one thing you might expect from that is that Brazil would be really high in immigration. That is, there would be a lot of immigrants in Brazil. I mean, all those populations, they must have come from outside Brazil, and thus Brazil has must have a really high foreign-born population. But that's actually not true. And so I'm on Wikipedia right now, and I'm going to give you guys a look. This is pretty much countries by percentage of people born outside the country. So, for example, in the Vatican, it's 100% because 100% of the people in the Vatican were not born in the Vatican, right? Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Monaco, Liechtenstein, all really high populations, right? Let's keep going lower and lower and lower and lower. And we get to like some of the more quote unquote normal countries, but with still a lot of immigration. Switzerland, Australia, they're 30%. That means that pretty much one in every three people living in Switzerland right now, living in Australia right now, they're born outside the country. 28% for New Zealand, 25% for Austria, 23% for Ireland. The US is a bit down, it's at 15%. Lots of European countries here: Denmark, Greece, France. And you don't see Brazil, right? Italy's at 11%, Malaysia, even countries that you wouldn't normally associate with a lot of immigration. I don't know, Turkey, Suriname. Suriname is at 8%, and we're already getting pretty low here, you know? Peru, Colombia, Palestine, Venezuela, Argentina. You got to keep going down and down and down. Romania is at 3.4%. Japan, which is known for not having a lot of immigration, 2.8% of the entire Japanese population right now is born abroad. And we don't see Brazil yet. We're not seeing Brazil anytime soon. Albania is at 1.7. Senegal is 1.5. Liberia is 1.3. And if we actually look at Brazil, it's at 0.7%. So Brazil has 200 million people, 2.2, 220, sorry, and about a million, 1.4 million people live in Brazil who were born outside of Brazil. And so, how is that possible? Like, how is that possible? And answer is pretty simple. Brazil, like most of the Americas, was built 100% on immigration, and the immigration was really, really intense for 500 years. But it has stopped in the last 20, 30, 40 years. Brazil, as a country in general, has gotten a lot worse. And so people have stopped, and some other parts of the world have gotten a lot better. So there's no more Japanese people coming to Brazil now, or Germans or whatever. And actually now it's more Brazilians leaving Brazil, which is something that nearly never happened until, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago. And so what we have is, if you go to Brazil, anyone you look at, everywhere you look, people are going to look different. They're going to, you're going to be like, surely they're not all from here, but they are. Like, they're all Brazilians. And it's not just them that are Brazilians. Their parents are Brazilians. Their grandparents are Brazilians. Everyone they know are Brazilians. And like, if you compare Brazil to like Switzerland, for example, Switzerland is like a really small country with like 4 official languages, hundreds of different dialects just in the German part. It's a very decentralized country in that way. Obviously, Europe has a lot of linguistic variety. Any country that has had recent immigration, so Australia, the US, for example, they have a lot of people from abroad that speak different languages. In Brazil, everyone speaks Portuguese. Like, everyone speaks Portuguese. They can look very different, but they speak the same language, normally with the same accent if they're from the same region. And obviously, there's different dialects and accents within Brazil. But I would honestly say that there's more different accents within like the UK than there are within Brazil, even though Brazil is much bigger population-wise, and especially in terms of like total size. So Brazil is very, very diverse, obviously. People who came from all over came and built the country, but it's not multicultural because everyone speaks nearly the same language. Everyone likes nearly the same sport. Everyone has nearly the same culture, really. Not that everyone agrees with that culture. Like, obviously, there's going to be Brazilians that don't like carnival as much or that don't like soccer as much. And this variance is natural, but it's a very cohesive, united culture that I think, honestly, you only see in Brazil. You're not going to see it anywhere else in the world. And you're not going to see any big country with such a cohesive culture that has, at the same time, such a diverse population. Because you could argue that India or China, for example, you could argue they have cohesive cultures and like uh, rituals and traditions that go back like 2,000 to 3,000 years. That's true, but there are their population is very the same. They all come from there. They've all been there for 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, since forever, really. Whereas Brazil, no one that lives in Brazil was in Brazil 500 years ago in terms of like their ancestors and all. So they all went there and they built something kind of a bit different, and they all look very different, but the integration was like amazing. And I noticed that a lot with people that go to Brazil. Talk to people who went to Brazil and all that, who are not from Brazil, obviously. So French people, Americans, and like it's bizarre how quick they draw to the culture, how quick they. It's not as if like they don't become Brazilian, they don't suddenly speak Portuguese, but the vibe, the beach volleyball, the carnival, the dancing, the music, it just kind of catches you in a way like that's truly, truly astounding. And Brazil's really like the best country in the world to be able to do that. Okay, so I just googled famous Brazilian people, and okay, I think you're gonna have a bit of a understanding of what I mean. Like, I don't know all those people. I know many of them, but I don't know all of them. But regardless, like, look at her, and then look at her, and then look at her, and then look at him, and then look at her, for example, or him, obviously. And so in America and Australia, obviously, there's people that look like everyone, but normally it's their parents that came to America, their parents that came to Australia, and not in Brazil. Like all those people you see here, I don't know their individual history or anything, but it's very likely that their families have been in Brazil for 100 years, for 200 years. Uh, and yeah, I think Brazil is very, very unique, very, very amazing in that regard. So one thing I would definitely ask you to do, or at least advise you to do, next time you meet a Brazilian abroad and they don't look exactly like the stereotypical Brazilian that you have in your mind, don't ask them, "But you don't look Brazilian. Are you really Brazilian? Are you sure? It's like, is it something in your family? And like, was there some immigration or something? Like, that is not how it works, really. With Brazilians, it really is the case that they could look like anything and have been in Brazil for 100 years, and that's very unique. That's something I think most Brazilians are very proud of. Like it's an interesting concept of like one culture from many different cultures just uniting and getting together. It's said that Brazil has gotten so much worse to the point where honestly, you go to Ireland, you meet more Brazilians than in Brazil. Like it's so many Brazilians in Ireland, in Florida, in Boston, in some parts of Australia, in Italy, in Portugal, because well, they've kind of had to leave. You know, like so many people from so many different countries went to Brazil looking for their dreams, and some of them definitely got it. And I'm sure there's plenty of happy people in Brazil. I met most of the people I met in Brazil, I could say, were happy people in one way or another. But it said also that so many people are having to leave, and that land of promised opportunity or promised like hope, let's say, no longer is the case. So much so that only 0.7% of the population is actually born abroad. And so, yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Normally, when you put Brazil in anything social media, a lot of Brazilians watch it. So it might be that in the comments it's just Brazilians. I don't know. But I hope that people outside Brazil, I don't mind that, but I hope people outside Brazil also watch this because I think it's more informative for you guys as well. All right. See you guys around.